Hey everybody, Röckët Stähr here, and this video is actually kind of two videos in one. I'm very excited to announce the start of my next big project, a new record I'm making. It's planned on it being a double record, and I want to give you a little background info into why I'm doing this particular record, and then sort of start the first video in the project kind of right after it. Some of you may remember that earlier this year I had actually announced I was planning on working on another rock opera called Rock and Roll Ain't My Baby. And I had several songs I was working on for it. But at the very same time, my father became very ill. It had been starting to happen for a little while before that, but it really progressed, and he passed away in June. And that was basically the dominant thing in my life for the first 6 months and the last few months of this year and the last few months of last year. And it had a huge impact on me. It took a lot of the wind out of my sails in progressing with my work and doing another project and all that kind of stuff. And in the months after it, of course, dealing with the fallout emotionally from that and everything, I just didn't really feel like working on anything inspired to do any of my music or much of anything really. But at the same time, my younger brother had asked me to get a bunch of tapes out of his apartment that apparently were there, and I had no idea. And these were all old reel-to-reel tapes and such from years ago that I had done in the 90s of various pretty high quality demo recordings that I did back then. In fact, I'm going to go grab a couple of those tapes to show you, and I'm going to do a quick edit right now. There were reel-to-reel tapes like this Ampex tape right here. This one's only a 1/4-inch tape, but I had a couple of, there were some 16 tracks, and there were also these things called ADAT tapes, which look like VHS tapes, but they're not, or well, they kind of are, but they're digital recording. Back in the 90s, these were, it was kind of like early digital recording, basically. And then there were also these things called DA-88s, which were also 16 tracks each. That was one of the, some of the ways we recorded in the 90s. So yeah, so my brother somehow ended up with all these old tapes of mine and asked me what I wanted him to do with them, and I told him just to throw them out. And then about a month or two later, I kind of rethought that and asked him if he still had them. And fortunately for me, he said he didn't have the heart to throw them out. So I got them, and I found places that could digitize these tapes. I wasn't even sure if they'd be able to be digitized after so many years, because tapes do deteriorate after time, folks. And sometimes they can't be playable if you let them sit too long. And this was, over 25 years ago. Some of them actually close to 30 years on some of these recordings. So I sent them out to a couple different places because certain places could handle some tapes and some places could handle others. And fortunately, they were all able to be digitized and they sounded really good. And when I listened back to it and I thought about these songs that were, I feel many of them are some of my best songs, I just kind of felt like now I have some basic well-recorded tracks from back then. This could be the start of a new project to finally get these songs done in a way that I wasn't able to accomplish all those years ago and get them out to people. And what many of these songs are, they're some of the first recordings that I ever did with strings and horns and all that when I first started teaching myself how to compose. And, I'd experiment, hope that they'd work, give them to the players in the studio, and luckily the parts, the songs worked. They were able to actually play what I wrote. These were some of the early things that basically over time it led up to what Death of a Rock Star was many years later when I started working on that. It was kind of the basis of me starting to explore that kind of songwriting. It started kind of exciting me to work again in a way that I hadn't felt since before my father got ill. So when I started listening back to the digital tracks that I got and made the decision that this maybe should be the basis of my next project. And what I'm doing with it is I'm going to combine many of those songs, and there was somewhere like, I don't know, 18 to 20 songs on these recordings. One of them has a gospel choir, and some of them are very incomplete, like the drum tracks weren't there for a couple of the songs. Whatever the tape that had the drums recorded on them for a few of these songs actually wasn't there, so I'm going to have a drummer redo the drums on those songs. And I'm going to re-record all the vocals, maybe redo some of the guitars, maybe redo a lot of the piano, and really just bring these tracks up to snuff to share with you. And in combination with that, I'm going to be adding a few newer songs of mine to the mix that I'll be recording during this whole process. That's going to help to balance out, because back then my songwriting was a little darker, maybe a little too much of a downer, even though I'm really proud of the songs. And so I'd really kind of like to add the newer element of my songwriting in there. And there's a few songs that I'm going to be adding to the mix that I wrote kind of in the in-between those old 90s songs and Death of a Rock Star and what I do now. They kind of wrote them in the early 2000s, and I'm also very proud of them. And I'm going to be recording those from scratch. So in the end, I'm going to have about 20 to 25 songs, something like that, I think. And not all of them will make this project. It's going to be a double record, but we'll see. We'll see how many of them come out sounding good, and which ones kind of fight for space on this next double record that I'm making. Now, a big part of this project is that I want to take you through my entire recording process so you can follow along with the making of this record over the next year or two, or however long it takes. And basically I'm going to be making videos where I'm either recording the guitars or just working on the actual track in the mixing program, my music program called Luna, so I can show you how I mix, how I edit, all the stuff that I have to do to make the songs actually come to life. I will be having videos with the drum sessions that I'm going to be doing, hopefully the string sessions that'll be coming up next year, and horns and stuff like that. And I have no idea how long this is all going to take and if it's going to be interesting for you or not, but I want to take you along, and I think it'll be a lot of fun to sort of share the process and show you how much goes into making a record, or at least show you how much I put into to bringing my music to you. And I'm hoping that the very end of this project is going to culminate in me drawing the entire cover, and I'll film that, and you'll be able to see how that process is going to work. And then by the end of it, and I don't know how long, maybe 2 years, I'm going to have a new double record that I'm tentatively calling After Oz, after one of the songs on the project. This is not there's not going to be a rock opera or anything as far as I know, but it may very well be a concept record to some degree. I'm not really sure. It might change as it goes along. When I first started Death of a Rock Star, I didn't know it was going to be a rock opera either. So we'll see where it goes. In my mind right now, I'm picturing doing maybe the cover being kind of a tribute to Elton John's Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Thus the title After Oz kind of mirrors that as well, and that's a long way away at this point. So coming up right now, the first video I want to share with you, I'm going to show you what I have to do to bring those digitized tracks from those old tapes into my recording sessions that I'm going to be using, and show you what goes into that. All right, so I hope you join me for this whole journey, and I hope it doesn't bore you. I think there's going to be some interesting stuff in here for you to see and to learn about in the recording process. So here's the first video in the series. All right, well, let's see how this goes here. This is my first time I've shot a video like this using a screen capture thing, and little picture of me in the corner here, so hopefully this goes well. So the first thing I want to show you here is when I sent out all those tapes to get transferred to digital, they sent back just sort of generic files, because basically what they do is they just let the tape play and record what's on there from beginning to end. And so I ended up getting folders like this one right here called deliverables that I downloaded. And as you can see, there's a bunch of folders in there: tapes 1 and 2, tapes 3 and 5, tapes 6 and 7, on and on. And in each of those folders, there's a ton of tracks here, 16, because it was on a 16-track reel-to-reel, I believe that one was. Here's another 18 tracks from this one. I don't know how it wound up with 18, but there's 18 on that one. So they each have a ton of tracks. They're all separate WAV files, a track from each of these tapes that was digitized. And if we open them up here, and you see it's, you might not be able to see because it's small, but this particular one is 48 minutes and 28 seconds. If I play that, we don't hear anything yet. Oh, there's some piano. That was some piano from one of the songs, one of the tracks that I did. Another. That piano was actually, that was recorded. I know what song that is. That was back in 1998 or 99, and that's actually an old digital piano back then that I brought into the studio because that studio didn't have a real acoustic piano. It was more expensive for a studio like that. So what I had to do then, another one. This stuff's probably gonna be really loud. All right, so anyway, I have to go through each of these tracks is like that. It's like 48, 50 minutes, something like that, and just random separated tracks that I recorded back in the day. So here's what I do. I take those and then I create a new session and call this one deliverables, so that I can just kind of create a session. Boom. And then I have to go and import all those tracks. Let's see how this goes here. Gonna look for my, let's see, I'll search for the deliverables folder. Yeah, there we go, 1 and 2. So you have to go through all of these and then import them all. Now it's gonna open up a whole bunch of all those tracks into the session. I use a program called Luna. It's from Universal Audio. Some people use Pro Tools, some people use Logic. I like Luna. I think it's because it emulates analog recording as much as possible in the digital realm, and that's what I'm all about. I love analog recording, you know, classic rock, all that shit. And I find it sounds so much better than other programs out there. Here's all the tracks. It's tons, as you can see, and again, this isn't even all the tapes. So I have to go through every single one of these tracks. You can see all the sound files here. You see these lines here, all this stuff. I have to go through all here and figure out what song each of these tracks go to. And I'll make that all smaller. There they are. There's all the blobs of audio. And there's all the tracks. And I have to go through all of this and figure out what the hell all of this is, what what songs they are, what instruments they are. And I can give you an example here. Let's go with the very first one here. I think we did check that out before, and it was piano. So let's see. Yes, this is piano. Again, this was my digital piano back then, and it's from a song called Spaceman Song, which is one I'm really excited for people to hear. And let's see, what's this here? Okay, this is another song called Amy Left Town. This is my longest song ever. It's over 7 minutes long. Another one I'm really excited to finally get out there. And then here is a song called After Oz, which is probably what I'm going to name the record. So what I have to go through here and then do is hit my B key, which breaks them apart. Just put a line there and break it apart here. I can see where there's no audio. That's where the break in the song is. And then I have to label each of these sounds and then export them for this entire mess of audio, all of this stuff. Let's see, let's pick something random out here. Play a little more music. Let's see what's going on here. Oh, it's a horn. Okay, and so I know the tracks that are in this group, in this section, are from Spaceman Song, but I think there's also some stuff down here. Probably got some strings over here. Let's see. Nope, that's drums. Sounds like a kick mic. As you can see, I'm kind of shooting blind, and I have to go through every single one of these, break them down, export them, and I've actually done that with a lot of it, so I can show you right now. I'm going to close that out, and then that gives me songs like, all right, yeah, here's a song called Gagged and Bound, which I may rename, I'm not sure, and I've already imported the tracks from that one and started working on them, as you can see here, and I'll get into some point all the shit that I have to do to work on each of these old tracks to get them all in working order. And let's play a little bit here. You can hear there's a whole band. And that's a string quartet that was recorded in 1999, probably, and drums and bass, upright bass actually. And I think I actually used a real piano on this one, recorded at a studio called Uptime that would no longer exist in Manhattan. So yeah, so each of those songs that was on that, and there's something like, I don't know, between the songs from back then that I've now transferred from those tapes, and some new ones that I'm working on to add into the mix, and from some that I wrote in probably the early 2000s or so that I wanted to add to this mixture of songs. It's probably about 25 or so songs that I'm going to be working on for this project, and I have no idea how many are going to actually make that onto the final record, which is probably going to be a double record again, because these songs I think are a little longer on average than the ones from Death of a Rock Star, which had 26 songs on it. This one, like I said, my longest song, called Amy Left Town, is on there, and that's over 7 minutes itself. So we'll see how they come out as they move along. And I guess that's about all I wanted to show you for now. That's simply how I'm going from those old tapes, transfer to digital, have to break them all up, label them all, create sessions for them, and fly those tracks into those sessions. Like I said, there's other songs that I'm going to show you as I'm working along that are new songs that I'm starting from complete scratch, and some songs that are years ago, but I'm also starting the recordings from scratch with drums and all that. With these songs, which you're going to see me working on and as I go along, that I'll do some sessions, is showing you all that I have to do to get these old recordings up to snuff, because back then I wasn't as in control of the recording process, and you also didn't have a whole lot of time when you're on a very limited budget. You're bringing a few different string players in who don't know each other, maybe haven't met each other, and my writing was kind of a little bit messy, so they kind of had to sort of figure out what I was getting at, and you don't have time to keep going over and over again. So you get one or two takes and go, okay, that's good enough, let's move on. And now when I listen back to it, some of the timing is off, some of the intonation is off, which is no fault of the players. It's, a matter of just how things went back then. But because of modern technology, I can go through all those tracks and kind of bring the timing into place a little more without making it sound like overly right on the money timing. I can just kind of move them over manually in the digital realm to kind of make it feel better, and I can fix a couple of the pitch problems and all that. I'm not looking into the camera enough here, right? Probably. So yeah, and I'm going to show you how I do all that as I go along, and it's really tedious because I've already started some of it, and it takes days and days and days sometimes just to get the strings lined up and how I want them to sound for one song. So anyway, that's the start of this project, and this is the very first video of it. Hopefully I'll get better at talking things through as I go along, and I'll be playing some music. You'll be hearing it as I'm working on it in little clips week by week, hopefully. And I hope you enjoyed this first installment of the making of Röckët Stär's next record. All right. Long live rock and roll.